federal judge has halted the deportation of Mohamed Soliman's family to Egypt. It comes after ICE took the family into custody on Tuesday.
Now, as a reminder, Soliman has been charged with federal hate crime and state counts of attempted murder. He is suspected of throwing Molotov cocktails at a pro-Israel rally in Boulder, Colorado this past weekend.
His family have not been charged, and Soliman says they did not have any prior knowledge of the attack. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem previously said the family was being processed for removal and vowed that justice would be served. It's important to note that this is a rare case, and when a criminal suspect's family is detained and threatened to be deported. Political commentator Brian Krasenstein writes on X, quote, "Our laws matter. Innocent people have rights, whether your hate and bigotry want or allow you to or not."
Investigative journalist and Trump ally Laura Loomer says they are not U.S. citizens. It was revealed that he told his family he wanted to commit jihad, and they didn't stop him. This judge is trying to keep jihadi supporters on U.S. soil to possibly attack U.S. citizens in acts of Islamic terrorism. That's treason. I guess the point I would bring to this is if they're trying to deport them right now, I would actually counsel not rushing this, but for a different reason, which is that how can investigators, it's only been a day or 2 days or 3 days, however long it's been. When did this happen? Earlier this week?
Yeah.
Officials cannot possibly by now have investigated all matters of this family and what knowledge they may have had and if there are other people involved.
Right, that are outside of the family.
So I'm not particularly in a hurry to get them out of the country where it will be harder to gather that information. If they can't be held because they're not being charged with anything, they should be monitored until such times as this investigation is concluded, at which point, consistent with whatever processes need to occur, I presume they will be deported even if they have nothing to do with this attack, and maybe they don't. Maybe it's even likely that they have nothing to do or had no knowledge, I don't know. But I would want to be really sure of that before I carried out the deportation, so I'm not sure what Kristi Noem is thinking. Again, it's not about being nice to them and letting them stay here. We have to be confident that we know all the facts, right?
Well, I think what Kristi Noem is thinking is that she's making a political point that the Trump administration, she is tough on people who break immigration laws. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think now is the time to do that, especially when we understand that there are some victims here that are revisiting trauma from the Holocaust. I think there's one survivor from the Holocaust that actually was impacted by this tragedy. And so to make this an immigration conversation when there's actual trauma with somebody who committed a terrorist act, you can't conflate those two things. We have to separate them and do the real research. We also must uphold American values, right? People are not automatically guilty by association. And so that's important to follow by our due process system. I think the federal judge was right to pause this and to actually look into it, because what we're going to do is gather information, piggybacking on your point, not only with the family, but who else did he speak to? If he didn't speak to his family, were there friends? Were there other people who overstayed their visa? Were there other people who just lived in America that didn't appreciate peaceful rallies like the one in Boulder, Colorado, that they wanted to attack in the future? And if we kick them all out of the country to prove an immigration point, then we lose access to really vital information that could protect people, Americans in the future, from similar attacks or copycats or anybody who may have influenced Soliman. So I think that's a terrible decision to make, and it's a very knee-jerk reaction decision to make based on emotion and trying to prove a political point as opposed to actual follow-through of due process to make sure that we get justice. Because I think all Americans should want justice for what happened to the victims in Boulder.
Sure. I mean, it is the case, or at least I've not seen anyone contest this point, that they are undocumented immigrant, that their immigration status has expired, that they were here because they're family members of their father, the suspect, whose work visa is expired, whose tourist visa is expired, so they can be deported. I would not say that should not take place. But thousands of people come here every year and
overstay their tourist visa or even their work visa. And I'm not saying that it's appropriate. I'm saying that if we're going to go and we're going to convict every single one of them of a crime.
No, we're not convicting them of crimes. We're just deporting them because they're illegal immigrants.
And that's fair to review, but that wasn't even on Trump's docket of people that were he's trying to get out the country immediately. So it doesn't even tie in directly with
I did see, so I saw some reporting yesterday. There was a news story about one of the, I think it's daughters that he has, saying, had such a promising future and is now going to be deported. How sad that is. And Well, it's sad that the family members, it's sad the burn victims are sad. Their families are sad. Why are we profiling the family of the terrorist right now?
Look, this attack was motivated by hate, but our response should not be motivated by fear. Our response should be motivated by bringing justice. That's a really important response. And we can't, operate in any knee-jerk reaction space right now when we really need to be the country that pulls it together, comes together on both sides of the aisle, and condemns acts like this, is my main point. And no, I don't think we should do a profile piece on the daughter or the family except for what their ties were to Soliman and this attack in Boulder. That's all we should be worried about. We can be tough on crime but still respect
it will make people wonder where the sympathies of media folks actually are.
And that's the thing. There shouldn't be sympathies of media folk outside of the family and the victims that were affected here. It's really just about reporting the information in the news and providing perspective, but serving sympathy across the board for an overall conversation about illegal immigration or where we stand in this country all subtracts from the point of making sure that the families and victims of this incident receive justice in this case. And that's what I think everybody should focus on.
Well, right. And they can't go until we know everything for sure. We got to know, did he, was he messaging are there like-minded individuals who could also be carrying out plots against Jewish people? Were there signs at the home? Or did they speak up? Again, I said this yesterday. Oftentimes, we find out that family members of the perpetrator of some crime did, in fact, contact law enforcement. And then there's no accountability for law enforcement when they ignore obvious red flags. This was the case in very famously in the Parkland shooter. That kid, his family had contacted every level of law enforcement, from the local sheriff's office, the ones that ended up handling the case, up until the FBI. Everyone knew and no one did anything. So I would like to know, in this case, if calls were made, if people were warned and nothing was followed up on. And we're told we have to be responsible citizens. If you see something, you should say something, and it's on us. But then when law enforcement has no response to these kinds of things, we don't ever hold them accountable. I
know we're wrapping up, but I would ask you, what would be the repercussions for law enforcement that ignored that? Is it like fire the whole police department?
Fire them, yes, fire them. I want people who are in law enforcement who don't take their jobs seriously to be fired, or are abusive of our civil liberties, fired. I want competent government. They work for us. That's how it should be.
Don't miss over any calls or complaints about somebody. Just make sure you check into every single thing.
Well, sometimes you get calls that are obviously BS. You can ignore that, but.
Understood.
Next up, Trump is detailing his phone call with Vladimir Putin and reveals whether he thinks peace is imminent, not likely. Stay tuned.